Hi everyone, welcome to Hive Talks with Resham Hemlani. We're here today live streaming from the Hive One Chai. So thank you everyone who joined us online as well. We're going to be diving into Resham's entrepreneurial journey, co-founding Hong Kong's leading EdTech platform, Xccelerate, and a little bit more about her role as CPO there as well. If you have any questions for Resham, you can drop them in a comment below. And for those joining us here today, we have a poster that we're circulating with a QR code. So you can just scan that and then post your questions for Resham there. And we'll be breaking for a short intermission as well, so you can save your questions for then to pose them to us, and then we'll have the Q&A afterwards. So thank you, Resham, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Why don't we just get started? Do you mind sharing a little bit more on what you were doing before co-founding Xccelerate and how you came to founding it?
Sure. So I was actually born and brought up in Hong Kong, and I was studying psychology. Post my degree in psychology, I did some traineeships with an insurance company, with an psychology-based startup, and doing some research there. So there were a couple of different projects that I was going into, and I wanted to upskill and reskill myself in UI UX design and do a boot camp. And at that time, like 6 years ago, there was just one opportunity in Hong Kong for a face-to-face boot camp, and they were pricing their 10-week course at $130,000, and that was not affordable for me. So, just looking for an opportunity for myself kind of led me into working with my brother and creating an opportunity for other people that would be in the same position as I would be.
What inspired you to, or what motivated you to found it together?
I think, firstly, the together part was not in the picture at all. It just kind of led in with the flow. We were both in our own journeys, and he was working in banking and then took a sabbatical, and I was doing these other traineeships. So we both saw that there was really limited opportunities in Hong Kong, and we really needed to prepare people and ourselves for the fourth industrial revolution. So by creating an opportunity that is more accessible and affordable and has in-person classes and project-based learning, that was our inspiration.
Speaking of, can you share a little bit more on Xcelerate's scope? What kind of services do you offer, and how can people gain value as well as upskill through your services?
Sure. So we are an EdTech platform. So we have customized trainings for corporates, and we also work a lot with individuals that want to upskill and reskill themselves. So our primary product is an immersive boot camp that is 26 weeks long, and people that are working are welcome to come and go through this immersive training. And they have career support services as well. So the goal is to target individuals that are looking to kickstart their careers within the tech sector. So whether it's UI, UX, data science, machine learning, or web dev, these are some of the courses we've got that really help individuals kickstart their journey.
Do you have a type of corporate that you usually work with, or what industry do you target specifically?
It's been a range. We've been working with governments like Hospital Authority. We provided Python training to the radiologist team over there. We worked with the Malaysian government. We've worked with a lot of insurance firms, banks, and SMEs. So it's really been a range and with different types of teams. But we customize the training to what they're looking for.
So for individuals who are interested as well, how can they take part?
Well, there are many ways. There are also free workshops that we offer, but we've also got online and hybrid type of courses that would really help them to kickstart their career. So it really depends on what the individual is looking for, but the courses are created in order to help them kickstart their careers, because a lot of individuals don't have the time or cannot afford like going back to university for 3 years to transform the career path they're on. But by taking an immersive boot camp while they're working, so it does not stop their finances, would really help them prepare for their future and also help them in the current work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate as well more on Hong Kong specifically? What is the tech education gap like? And is this a need that you identified early on?
I would say it's global, not just Hong Kong. There's going to be millions of jobs that are going to be replaced in the span of the decade, and that process has already started. So it's not just specifically for Hong Kong, but institutions not necessarily prepare their fresh graduates to kickstart their careers in a professional setting. And we created a curriculum that is more project based because what employers look for is the potential of the candidate. Not that the candidate has to know all their skills or be extremely proficient, but showing them that they have the potential to really grow their firm. So by creating and going through a course and creating 4 different projects shows that person's potential.
That answers my next question, actually, how it opens new opportunities for individuals. So may I ask as well, what has been the success been like for you, because you're so widely adopted across not just Hong Kong but Asia as well. So how have you been able to hone and expand your services to make it more targeted and more career focused for your clients?
Sure. So we actually have our clientele in 2 ways. So one is the B2C, the individuals that want to upskill and reskill themselves. And the other side is the corporates, where we do customized training. And the government's been supporting that too. We're an accredited firm, and they do the RTTP, which is like up to 78%. So both of them work differently.
Can you share some more as well on your role as CPO at Xccelerate? How are you driving talent, culture, as well as diversity and inclusion across your team?
So as a growing firm, there is not a fixed role. It is basically one person with multiple hats. So from operations people to talent acquisition, my role really varies. And in order of attracting more talent, we really believe in creating a compassionate and empathetic work setting, which is really important because individuals in this day and age, they're not just looking for a compensation package, they're looking for a purpose, they're looking for passion. And the talent gap has really changed, the environment's really changed. So by creating an atmosphere where people have flexible working hours, that can travel, that really find passion in what they're doing and have the opportunity to grow, I think that really helps attract more talent.
Mm-hmm. What kind of growth opportunities do you focus on, if you don't mind sharing? Or what's been beneficial for employees so far, for businesses in general?
Sure. So Xccelerate adopts a personal and professional growth. If you check out our WhatsApp, people are inspiring each other to go for hikes at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, eating healthy, just having a break. We talk about mental health. We're partnering up with a mental health firm. So we really want people to grow on a personal level too. And professionally, all our courses come through as scholarships for our team, and we have a lot of mentors and board members that come and provide that coaching to the team members. So people that have the hustle and the passion and want to grow, they're the ones that kind of get attracted to this growth mindset.
So is there a lot of interest and uptake then for Xcelerate's courses too with the team?
In what sense?
In that they also want to be upskilling and expanding their own professional portfolio?
Oh yeah, a lot, a lot. Actually, it's really interactive education for them because they will stay back together, go for dinner, and then stay for a class. And so it's become like a fun educational event for the team. So I think as long as people are constantly evolving, that really helps their own growth. Yeah.
Sounds like an amazing, ambitious, driven team. May I ask as well, how was the impact of the pandemic on this? Did you find that you needed to shift the scope of your services, or did it actually find that you were already meeting this gap and it worked really well with the impacts of it?
So the pandemic started off as a bit of a rocky journey for us, but it was a blessing in disguise because we had a lot of our services that were offline, and this really encouraged and pushed us to immediately move online and start adapting to a more remote setting, as also for our internal team. And that's kind of the way of moving forward right now, moving closer to digitalization. So it was a push, but and people were hesitant to invest into upskilling themselves at that time because the impression was, oh, this is going to go away in 3 months and then everything's back to normal. But 3 years later, we're still here and this is a new normal. So it started off like that, but it came through as a really beautiful journey for us to grow as a team as well.
That's amazing. Having co-founded an EdTech platform that empowers people through upskilling, reskilling, why is it important that businesses also reinforce the professional development of their employees through platforms such as yourselves?
I think it's really important for talent retaining and talent and getting talent. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in this day and age that people don't just work for a paycheck. People work for multiple factors. It's having the right coaches and mentors. It's feeling valued, feeling heard, and evolving their journey. I mean, no one would want to stay in this like stagnant with their growth and role. So in terms of upskilling and reskilling, it does help the business as well. For example, looking at banks, 5 years ago, they would use a data language R, and 3 years later, they've all moved away from those systems, and there are new systems. So it's not really productive for them to really let go of the whole team and then bring a new team. Hence, upskilling and reskilling is the most convenient and fastest way.
That makes a lot of sense, especially now with such a tech-powered world.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for businesses as well on how they can take the initiative to empower their employees regardless of their scale? So even for startups as well, how can they start to implement these practices?
It depends what they want to train their teams in, but I think the biggest incentive is demonstrating to the team members that this is not for business success, this is for your success. And when that mind shift is there, people are more likely to complete those courses or complete the training, because the last thing a firm wants is to drag 100 people all look like they're going to fall asleep in a really forced environment training. So it's by making it more interactive and educational. So that kind of setting would really encourage more people. Yeah, and gamifying it as well.
Is this something that you practice as well at Xccelerate?
Yeah, we do. We do have team members that take the courses together and spend like lunches and after that time. So it's become more of an interaction and engagement for them as well.
Sounds really fun and very engaging. Could you share a little bit more on the development of Xcelerate's platform, actually, from wanting to fill this education gap to taking on a team to start training and empowering people? What was that like for you in the early stages compared to now?
I mean, like all startups, we started with a single product and with a big dream, and that was the Web Development Bootcamp. The first course was in Feb 2017, and there were around 16 individuals that we found that were interested. And it was very experimental, to be very frank, like every startup is. It really was. It was like a room of guinea pigs, and they were just, exploring and experimenting the idea. So from there to growing into multiple different services with corporate training to building a metaversity to doing customized training, I think we've really evolved, and we've also moved towards the market trends.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned metaversity. Do you mind speaking a little bit more on that?
I think our CEO would be a better speaker over there. Well, it's interactive, and it's preparing us for digitalization. That is the future coming, running very closely to us. So by making education, and it's more, we're trying to build this concept of earning to learn. So again, incentivizing people to get financially stable by learning.
Do you have any insights for individuals? Because there are a lot of up and coming trends which may be daunting to some, especially if they haven't touched on these areas before, but they want to start learning or maybe upskilling as well. How can they get started to educate themselves about these topics?
I think start small. Honestly, it's all about bite size. It's like 10 minutes. Maybe do a little bit of research. What are the differences with the different languages? What do they think they need for their success, and kind of introspect over that before making a really big change, because it takes commitment and discipline. So if that is not there, if the motivation isn't there, it's going to be pointless. Yeah.
Going back to the development of the platform, actually, I also would like to ask if what were your experiences like co-founding the platform with your brother, Levine? Were there any challenges that you faced working with a sibling? I'm personally interested as well. Or was it ultimately beneficial for you?
Do you have a sibling?
I have 3.
Would you ever work with one?
No.
It's actually not as bad as it sounds. We never intended to, it was not something like we're in university or high school where like it'd be awesome to build something together. It kind of just, our paths just passed, and that's how we kind of came over here. It's been a really exciting journey. Of course, we have our boxing matches like every other sibling, metaphorically, not physically. No one gets punched physically. But it's really been a journey, and it's actually strengthened our bond as siblings. We've learned to really appreciate each other. We've learned to play with each other's strengths and weaknesses, and I think by compassionately listening to what the other says, and it's also really reassuring, because during rough times like the pandemic, when all businesses are not doing really well, having that reassurance that someone you trust is there and on the same journey, I think is really comforting and also empowering.
How would you describe your working dynamic, or how have you developed your working relationship to now?
Well, 2 things. One is maintaining boundaries, so personal and professional boundaries. We in the workplace are just team members working together. We've had team members that didn't know we were siblings for up to 6 months. So that means we were doing our job correctly. So I think it's really important to do boundaries. And secondly, I think it's being transparent and honest with each other and calling them out. Yeah.
Good advice as well for business partners in general.
For sure. But experiment working with a sibling.
I'll take your advice. It worked for you, so. Reflecting on the pandemic as well, working directly in the EdTech industry, it of course boomed a lot as a result of working from home, school from home, and stuff like that. Do you mind speaking a little bit more on how the pandemic impacted the industry?
Sure. So firstly, there were negative impacts, like a lot of people lost their jobs. We've had a lot of air attendants. We've had a lot of people from hospitality that have come through and tried to upskill themselves and move, as we saw that this pandemic wasn't going anywhere a year after. So it did have the negative impacts, but the positive impacts is it really pushed us to get prepared for digitalization and for the future of work, which is the space we're in right now. So I think in that sense, and working really agile, it really gave a push to everybody.
What did you do at Xccelerate as well to accommodate the increased interest and people who are coming to you from across so many different industries looking for the skills that you were providing?
So making sure that we were aligned with their expectations. I think that was really important, because the idea of something and doing something is very different. So aligning with their expectations, but also really building out the opportunities and helping to focus on finding employment. I think that was one of the key goals, because 99% of the individuals that come through our courses come with the intention to pivot careers and to look for a new opportunity. So by adding more emphasis and more opportunities and more events, online VR events as well, to bring in more employers, I think that's what we did.
That's amazing. So speaking of growing your client base, how were you able to expand Xcelerate's reach across Asia as well?
Well, it's a team initiative. Our team is very diverse. We've got members in different countries around Southeast Asia, like Philippines. We had team members in Singapore, Nepal, India. So we're quite spread out. So I think that really helped. And also being a really diverse team as well. Really proud to say we've got 10 different nationalities and 50-50 with female and male members, which is really helpful.
That's amazing. How we're in a tech-enabled city like Hong Kong, do you think that now, as we're going towards digitalization, as you mentioned, hard skills such as learning to code will become the new normal, and actually more and more people should be working towards developing their portfolio in this way?
It's already becoming the new normal right now. Again, if you look at a lot of fresh graduates applying for jobs in banks or SMEs right now, the requirements in the descriptions is like certain coding or data languages. So that shift has already started taking place. Universities like HKU, we've worked with a couple of universities that have added it in their finance courses as well, some modules. So we are already in that journey where we're moving closer towards digitalization.
What benefits do you share with potential clientele as well to encourage them that these are fundamental skills? Or also perhaps people taking part in corporate upskilling who are not entirely sure how they'll be able to apply them in the future?
So in terms of our corporate clients, we customize the trainings. So for example, we would use the data that they offer and make it really interactive and project-based. And that really helps and motivates team members to go through. So it's not just direct listening to a lecture and someone talking to you, it's interactive learning, and that pedagogy is being the most effective. If you see Coursera and other accessible education platforms, they're amazing, but stats show that only 90%, like 90% don't complete the courses. So there is something wrong with the online. Maybe it's the motivation, maybe it's the interaction, maybe it is not specific for the, for a certain company or person. So by customizing it, I think that's really effective.
Is there something specific that you look for as well when hiring the instructors and the team who are working to develop these courses at Xccelerate that helps to drive this engagement, interaction, gamification?
I think the key thing when I'm interviewing candidates is passion, is their hustle, and also their compassion. Because when you're working with a group of adults that are really frustrated and not being able to understand code, emotions go everywhere. It's really important for a instructor to understand the place they're in and just patiently go through. It's a different ballgame than teaching children. So I think it's really important for us to find members that are really passionate about what we do and focus on the social impact. That is a key thing we look for in operational roles too. I personally believe skill sets can be taught, but a personality cannot be taught. So by identifying talent in the right personality, you're doing a better investment to the firm, because your people make or break the firm.
That's so true. Do you have, this is a little bit of you're a CPO, I'm asking for your advice. Personality maybe cannot be shifted, but how can people better motivate themselves or shift their attitude towards being more open-minded and growth-oriented when seeking new positions?
I think it, again, depends on the growth mindset of that individual. It depends the intention in which they're searching for a job. If one is seeking for an opportunity to pay the bills, which is important, the chances are they're not really going to be compatible with a firm that is really focused on hustle. But if someone is ready to put in that hours, ready to work with the team despite the differences and really take the firm to the next level, that is the type of personality that really attracts a lot of growing startups.
With an ever-expanding team at Xccelerate as well, how do you drive employee engagement and keep them motivated as you scale?
I think it should be work hard, play hard. We have to have a really big balance. So celebrating people, celebrating their festivals, celebrating successes, I think that's really important in team building, and really showing that you care. If someone's birthday or someone's sick, sending a care package, having a cake. I think these soft signs of value is really important. But at the same time, creating the opportunities for them to grow is also really important.
Mm-hmm. And looking as well at the services that you offer, currently Xccelerate focuses greatly on blockchain, AI, as well as software engineering. Do you plan on branching out in the future to different fields, or is it more dependent on the trends as you continue to adjust your materials and everything?
Both. I mean, right now we are building curriculum on cybersecurity. We have the intention for VFX, for gaming. So there is a really big scope, project management, that we have to bring people closer to.
Do you foresee what the next tech trend might be that people will need to start upskilling on, maybe in 5 years down the line?
I mean, it is being broadened in all industries. So whether it's health tech, whether it is to do with the environment, it really depends on the stream an individual wants to bring their career in. But cybersecurity seems to be really blooming at the moment.
Really important to know as well. That brings me to my last question, actually, for our interview portion of the evening. What's the next step for Xccelerate? What can we look forward to seeing from you? Maybe this year, do you have anything exciting that you're working on?
A lot of exciting projects. We've really built our job board, which individuals are able to apply. And we're building this whole ecosystem where there's a job board, there's Xccelerate Live, a lot of live streaming classes, and people can really build and grow themselves, as well as different types of boot camps where people can kickstart their careers. So it is a really exciting journey for us as well, and to move all around Southeast Asia. So that is the plan, and we're just following the journey.
That's amazing, and looking forward to seeing you continue on your journey as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Resham. We're going to break for a short intermission now, so if you have any questions, we have a little poster that we're circulating with the QR code, so you can scan it and upload your question there. And we'll be back after the intermission to chat with Resham again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you so much for submitting your questions for Resham. We're just going to get started with the first question. So this is, how do you deal with new hires that are not a good match or the most suitable for your company? Tough question.
Yeah, really tough question. Um, I think it's really important to first be familiar with what you're hiring for. A lot of times, firms hire for roles they think they need, but the work is completely different. So I think aligning with the candidate is really important. I think having check ins with them every week or 2 weeks and giving yourself a timeline, the firm or your manager a timeline of like, how long will you need to explore that candidate's potential? Because if there's no timeline, sometimes we can make personal decisions as HR managers, and it's really important to come back to what is the business need. Then I feel so bad to terminating this person. So I think it's always reflecting constantly on what is the business need. Is this a right culture fit? And what is the progress for this candidate?
Very valuable advice. Our next question is, what is your advice for a young entrepreneur who wants to run a business but also learn at the same time? How can they balance both of these things?
Just start. Honestly, just start. The more we spend time in really ruminating and um, taking that gap of going towards our dream, the longer the process and maybe the longer the procrastination, to the extent that we keep giving ourselves excuses like, oh, next year, oh, I need to first do this, so the year after that, and that never comes through. So I think just start, and by doing your entrepreneurship journey, that's the biggest learning one would get. Unless it's like a university degree, and that could be managed part time with a part time MBA, for example. But I think what I've learned in the past 5 years, no offense to the education system, more than I've learned in the past 18 years of my education system.
What's your advice then for working on establishing a balance, managing multiple responsibilities at the same time?
I think it's giving yourself timelines and being really honest on priorities. Like that job might be more entertaining and more interactive, but is that really a highest priority at the moment? It's important to also do the boring admin work and the foundations of what a business really needs. So by balancing and putting timelines, I think that's really important.
Thank you. Our next question, thank you for sharing a very inspiring journey. How did you scale your company from the beginning to now? Do you have any practical advice for startups looking back at how you scaled Xccelerate? How can they apply this themselves?
I think every journey in every industry is really different. So it would be really hard to give an answer that could help. But in my personal journey, it is really being aware of the team you hire. Like I mentioned earlier, a team can make or break a firm. So having the right people and the core team is really, really essential. And having the right culture is really essential. One individual that may not be a right fit can really create a lot of conflict. So having that positivity and that motivation, especially in a small firm, there will be challenges in your way. When you're from 2 people to like 30 plus people, there will be a lot of changes. There will be politics in certain ways. So I think it's really important to be in tune with every individual that comes through.
That actually goes into our next question and the last one from our Q&A. What is your advice for new founders looking for the right team? How do you identify your business's needs and establish the appropriate culture to build that team?
It depends on the impact that business is trying to make. So first, be in tune with what is the outcome of your business. What do you want? What is your intention? And being really transparent in the interview process. For example, if you're hiring a salesperson, but you still have certain products that have to come through, or whatever, if it's a retailer or service based, or there's some issues being very transparent on the resources the sales individual would have is important, because that would prevent them with the hiccups they'll experience throughout their probation. So it would also help you identify the right talent. So I think transparency is really important, and also creating team building events and just talking to people as people, not working machines, is really important. Being compassionate and empathetic is really key, especially during this pandemic time. I mean, everyone's going through such a rough time with in Hong Kong not being able to meet their family or, loss. I think it's really important to be empathetic, and that really builds in more loyalty as well as motivates the team.
Really valuable advice and a positive note to end our evening. Thank you again, Resham, for sharing your valuable insights. It was so lovely having you here today, and thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much, Hannah. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
For those who are interested in catching the live stream again, you can just head over to our LinkedIn page at The Hive, or follow us on social media at The Hive Hong Kong or at Hive Life Magazine for future events. You can also follow Xccelerate on social media at Xccelerate with an X, skills. And thank you again for joining us today. If you'd like more information or would like to stay tuned, feel free to just catch us on social media, and we'll see you there. Thank you again, and have a good night.
Thank you.